plan business analysis approach. So what does that really mean? So it means that we need to identify, we need to actually define and specify clearly what is the approach that we're going to do, and follow for the business analysis activities. All kind of activities, all the things that you would like to do, what is the approach? So basically that could be to do with if it is a project, are you following a project, a specific project management methodology, project development approach, or is it a waterfall type project management, or is it like a agile development? What kind of solution would fit in? What is the best one? And then we need to also identify if it is a process improvement, process re-engineering, is it TQM, is it a re-engineering approach, do we want to follow a specific time boxed approach, or do we have the luxury of actually having the infinite time but doing tasks as they come, which is pretty much like a Kanban approach? So that's the approach that we're talking about within the business analysis approach. This is the first and foremost within this particular knowledge area. So when we talk about this, it should address, number one, methodology. What methodology are you trying to follow? And again, going back to the model, the development lifecycle model, for example, within the IT, it could be to do with what kind of model, waterfall, Scrum, Kanban, XP, Lean, a combination of these, SAFe, the scaled approach, whatever it is. So we need to identify those. And then we also need to identify the deliverables, clear deliverables and outcomes and artifacts that we're going to produce. Are we going to produce FRS documents, SRS documents, BRD, business requirement document, MRD, market requirements document, or are we going to use user stories more in the agile way, right? User stories, and then planning pokers, and then estimates and acceptance criteria. So those are the kind of things that we're going to create as artifacts. So we need to identify again what kind of artifacts and what tasks and activities that we're going to follow. What kind of, so it could be estimation, could be one task. So when we talk about business analysis, we need to estimate, we need to work with the team. So there should be some estimations, as an activity. Prioritization is another activity that we need to do with the product owner. And with the team, we need to identify the development kind of plan for the development and deployment. When should be the particular requirement? When it is ready, when are we going to deploy it? So the deployment aspects, the planning for the deployment. And the third one could be testing, working with the testing people, with the testers, with the QA, and to make sure that whatever we have got in the requirement is actually validated and is actually developed in the product. Yes, it is there. No, it is not working. So that kind of testing, working with the testers and testing team to do the kind of assurance, the quality assurance and the validation verification of requirements. That's again another activity. So all of these, there's so many activities in it that we do as part of. So we need to identify all of those. And again, we need to specify as business analysis what we're going to do. Mm-hmm. And then we communicate the vision, the gain commitment, communicate again the vision of the product or the project or the process. We would need to reiterate that with the stakeholders. Again, this is one thing where I'm actually helping with for the client that I'm working now. So where the client doesn't, they do have an idea in terms of what they want to develop, but they don't have a clarity in terms of what exactly that would be, right? And how exactly that should look like, what kind of features and functionality that it should potentially have, and what is the kind of market that they would like to address, the target user base. So they do not have a clear idea about all of these. So that's where we as BAs could actually kind of help them to structure these kind of interviews, the studies, and stakeholder interactions, making sure we actually connect these different dots from across the different perspectives. Business perspective has got one idea, the technology perspective team has got a different idea, operations team, the customer team, marketing, then you've got infrastructure team. All of these have got different ways of looking at the same. It's like the elephant and the five blind men, right? So you remember that. So each person would actually describe the elephant in the way that they would feel and perceive. So for some, that could be elephant is really solid and strong like a wall, whereas some people actually feel that the elephant is like a curved thing, depending on the trunk, because they're feeling the trunk. Whereas somebody else might actually feel that it's just the tail there, that small tail. It's the thing that's a very small thing like a fish, because they are seeing the whole system from their own point of view, from their role, from their perspective, and they don't get the big picture. Whereas we as BAs are the right people to be able to actually, stitch these different threads and different streams of thinking into one cohesive one. And that's why we call it as a holistic thinking, right? The puppet thinking from the people angle, from the processes, from the operations, from the information, from the technology angle, all of that. We will have to think about all from these different perspectives, and then tie it around and then connect the dots and be able to actually bring all of those into one particular perspective and present it to the stakeholders. And that's what we need to do as a BA. So again, what kind of things that you would do here is, in terms of the business needs that go as inputs, you would actually start with identifying the problems or opportunities that are faced by the organization, define the why of an action. So basically, when somebody says, yeah, we've got to work on this project, we've got about 2 million pounds budget to be spent in the next 3 years, and this is what we're going to do, then what you need to ask as BA is why are we doing this? What is the motivation for us to actually start off the project in the first place? What are the challenges that we have in the current product or the current system that we are using? What is the motivation? What is the rationale for us to have this kind of a project, this initiative, this program, this new process?
Who came up with this ridiculous idea?
Exactly. Exactly. Yeah. So when you ask that question, so again, going back to this diagram, this is very, 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 very important. If ever you are in doubt, just go back to the simple thing that actually says this one that you're seeing here: what, why, where, how, and when.
Oh,
Very, very, very important.
let me
So
zoom in more. Oh, 6Ws. Okay. Wow. So do you start with what or why?
so you start with the what, which is the functionality. What is
What,
basically
why,
what is the,
where, when?
yeah, why is the logical stuff. So I'll tell you how I do it. So basically, this is what I created, and this I quite like this one because I fancy this and I
But
use it
is
very
this a
much.
Babok thing? Is this a Babok thing, this one?
No, it is not Babok. It's something
This is
which I,
your,
yeah.
this
So
is your
this is
invention.
functional, correct? It's a functional what. What is functionality? Why is the
Okay.
logical stuff? Why is basically logic, asking you rationale about why you're doing things,
Uh-huh.
why not that, right? The motivation. And where gives you the context, basically the
Mm-hmm.
context or the environment of that usage. Where is it applicable? Whether they're using in the field, whether you're using it in the office, whether you're in the home, whether you. So what kind of, where gives you the kind of usage context and usage environment? So that gives you
Yeah.
rich data about how it's being used. And then the who would give you the perspective about the stakeholders involved, not just customers or users, but who are the real drivers. That's where you differentiate between the real users and people. The people who buy your product may not be the real users, and the people
Yeah.
who are using may not have the decision making power. So you need
Mm-hmm.
to differentiate between these two. And then perhaps these two are don't even belong to a segment called the stakeholders, who are actually kind of having the great stake or high stake into your product in terms of taking decision as to what goes
Mm-hmm.
when. So who is basically giving you that kind of people perspective about who are all involved, in what way are they involved, are they involved directly or indirectly, what do they get out of this, what are they putting into it in terms of their time, effort, commitment, money, and what are they getting out of it, what is their reward, what are they expecting out of, what are their expectations out of the product. So all of these, and then when is basically, when is that actually gives you a trigger in terms of the action that is happening. When, what is it that is, what are the events that are actually trying to drive the people to use this product, when is it
Mm-hmm.
getting used in this context, in the life cycle of their the workflow, where does it fit in into the context of their own workflow, when does it really get triggered, when does it get used, and how is basically the implementation aspect of it, the solution. It's basically the solutionizing of that. That's why they say that, people say that don't solutionize things, just identify the problem first, then you can come up with a solution. Because sometimes we have got this problem of solutionizing even without understanding the real problem. You've got 100 things and you say ignore all 100 things and start implementing some solution without even understanding the basis of why you're doing something. And that's why
Mm-hmm.
people say that don't solutionize things, start addressing the problem first, prioritize the
Yeah.
problem, specify the problem, communicate the problem, and then attack the top problem, which is actually having more impact, more importance, more urgency, right? And then that's a better way of actually addressing the problem. And that's why you should have the how as well. But then the point is, we as BAs, we should be focusing more on these elements of these five, and this one should be more of how we can enable the people to implement, and that's the designer or the developer and the architect. They would focus on this one based on what information we gave here. So we should be able to give 95% of this information is actually here in terms of BAs, and we should enable them to transition from this problem space into the solution space, the how space. And that's why I keep telling you, you should not worry too much about the technologies, and you don't need to be a techie to be able to implement, to be able to work in a project, because as BA, your role is specifically about the problem, the needs, the opportunities, the kind of assumptions, the constraints, the challenges, all these things. If you're able, the rules, the business rules, if you're able to understand these in the first place, identify them, prioritize them, specify them, and then communicate these to the team, that's your job as a BA. That's it. And then perhaps your job could be a little bit of other, your job could also perhaps include looking at the available solution that would address those problems that you did identify, specify, communicate, and then help the team to create that solution, to develop and implement and deploy that solution. You are not supposed to do that, because there are better experts, there are different set of people who and roles who would be best fit to do that. Whereas BAs are not the solution people, they're the problem people. They're the people who are working on the problem space, whereas you've got a whole lot of other roles like the developers, architects, testers, designers, all of these other people, other roles. They are the best placed people to work on the solution space, whereas we should be addressing and focusing on the problem space. And perhaps we can help the team to transition, because there's a lot of transition involved. It's like a bridge between these two domains. So we should be able to be the bridge. We should be able to actually take the people from this particular side of, from this bank, from this tower to that tower. We should be able to lead them through that bridge and land them safely to the solution side, and then they can work on that. Once they reach that side of that bank of that solution, they will be able to identify the best things, how they can build. They can actually take out from there, and then they'll start putting together bricks and everything else. They lay the foundation, they know all that stuff, and they can build the huge mansion. But you don't need to worry about it, but you can help them as a BA. Can be a team member, so you should be helping them, but you should not worry too much on the solution. That's my take. And that's what I think. And then what we need to also understand is that
why you say that you should focus on the solution?
Because if you focus on the solution, again,
you will focus, but you will be responsible for the outcome of the project, right?
You would, and essentially the outcome of the project really depends on whether you've identified the problem in the first place, right? So do the right thing, and do things right. So do the right thing is about, you've got 5 different things, yeah? So you need to pick up the one thing that is right. On what basis would you pick up that? Do the right thing, right? So that's the prioritization. That's the prioritization. The prioritization depends on, you've got 1,000 problems to address. Which problem would you tackle first? Which monster are you going to deal with first? Whose problem is that? That is your problem. So the 1,000 monsters out there in the things, and it's like playing a video game. You've got zombies coming from everywhere. You need to first kill the zombies, and then you need to from there you can actually get to the next level where you can get a lift from the helicopter. But the zombies are coming to you. It's your job as a BA, as a sniper and the soldier, to kill those zombies. You can't just wait for the helicopter to come without escaping from these zombies. The problems and the assumptions and the constraints, challenges are all those zombies. So you need to address those. You need to sort those problems first. You need to identify which of these are problems, which of these are opportunities, what kind of things are they presenting, which ones are important for us, which ones are urgent for us, and then help and work with the product owner. And that's why BAs and the product owners are like work hand in glove, because they both operate in the problem space. They don't have to, and that's why I keep telling you that do not worry about the technology implementation. You don't have to worry, because there is somebody else who is responsible for that, who is a developer. You are a BA, you should focus on the problem space, identifying the problems, prioritizing them, specifying them, communicating the problems, and then perhaps, also looking at the market, looking at the competition, looking at the wider set of options that you have, evaluate those, compare and contrast what is the best option, what is the best feature available, which one is cheapest, which one is the best, blah blah blah. Even the solution evaluation is perhaps the closest that you can get to in the solution. You can't build the solution, you're not supposed to, because you're not expected to be a solution guy. You're not a techie, you don't understand, you're not a painter, you can't be a painter, right? So there's a painter, there is a draftsman, there is an architect, right? There is an architect. For example, if you take a house, you've got an architect, you've got a painter, you've got a plumber, you've got it's pretty much each of those are specialists. They're responsible in their own areas. As a person, as a contractor who is having an idea about that particular house, what are the things involved, you might not have an idea about how to do the plumbing of a particular tap and how to do the electric wiring. You may not know. You'll get a specialist for that. You don't have to worry. All these are specialist jobs. The front-end developer, the back-end developer, data person, the people who do the designing, the visual design, they are there. You don't have to be a designer yourself. You don't have to be a developer yourself to do that. Then what happens to the product? So as BA, it's good to know, but you're not expected to actually roll up your sleeves and start doing things yourself. That's the whole idea. That's where people really fall into the cracks, and they get lost, because they expect that, oh, perhaps the BAs need to be an experts in this one. They do not need to be experts. They should, again, that's where there's a concept of T thinking, which is basically about the horizontal knowledge of something and then the vertical aspect, right? So you need to know enough about the horizontal aspect, the breadth of it, and then a little bit about the depth, if you go a little in depth. So that's why I call as a BA, you need to start having a mile wide and an inch deep approach. So you need to know a lot about, okay, what are the things involved? If it is finance, what kind of finance? Is it vehicle finance, insurance, about banking, investments, credit, derivatives, all of these? You need to know all these different things. That's the mile wide, all the associated things that you have within that area. If you talk about finance, if it's about healthcare, you've got pharma, you've got diagnostics, you've got all these other things that drug development, clinical trials. There's so many things that come into healthcare, hospital management. These are all the horizontal aspects. You need to know these as to what are the related stuff. But when it comes to the depth, you're happy to just stop in terms of knowing a little bit about each of these, something about everything. You don't need to know everything about everything. You need to know something about everything. So that's why you start off anything with this idea of the horizontal breadth is mile, and then the depth of that is you're good enough if you know just about an inch deep about each of those. But as you go in, you might want to actually explore a little bit more, talk to stakeholders, get the interviews done, conduct workshops, do secondary study research of things. So you actually develop a little bit more and more. So your project or solution is not going to address all those things, right? So for example, you're working on a insurance application. It's not going to talk about investment banking. It's not going to talk about trade derivatives. It's not going to talk about the aspect of private banking. It's not going to talk about 100 other things. It's going to talk about only the specific aspect of the banking, or it's going to talk about only the insurance application claim, for example. So that's where you're going to delve deeper and deeper. So you're actually going to paradraw from a 30,000 feet overview, and then you're actually landing into so from that, at that level, you're operating at the business level, right? So you're actually looking at what is a business problem, what is a thing. And then as you drop further and further and further, and you land on the ground, you will get a better idea in terms of what is our target market, what is the problem here, who are we going to help with this solution, what is the solution about? This is about an insurance claim. Is this insurance about home, or is it about car? So all of that. If it's a home insurance, what kind of things is it covering? What is the scope of coverage, the contents and belongings, right? So you're talking about all those things. Are they covered? So basically you're getting into that space, and then you start thinking about and digging deeper and deeper into that. Then you don't worry about investment banking, you don't worry about private banking, you don't worry about all these. Similarly, healthcare, if it is about drug development, drug discovery, you don't worry about the hospital management, other things, even though you know that a little bit about that. So you're slowly getting mile deep. You're getting mile deep and then inch wide. So as you go into the solution, as you try and understand the things better and better, you, even though you are a business analyst, still you are now evolving into the perspective of a person who is going to the solution space. So you're delving deeper and deeper into that particular area of expertise. Whether you're developing a CRM application, you're talking about customers, what kind of customers, how are you going to engage, what kind of communication plan, how are you going to capture the information? Is it through email? Is it through SMS? All kind of those things you're trying to address. How are you going to address that? What are the kind of the field for the address? Is it going to be a postal address, email address? What data type it is? Is it a string? What number of characters are there? Do you want to have 15 characters or 256, right? So what are you going to do now? This is basically trying to delve deeper and deeper into the solution. Then you're not really talking about 100 other things associated with that. You're now blinkered, you're kind of focused on that particular area only. And there you're trying to gain expertise. You're trying to actually delve deeper and deeper, talk to different people who know the subject matter experts. And then you're trying to put all that information that you've gathered in the form of requirement, the user stories,